Hi everyone, welcome to my Personal Finances PodCat, episode 58. Today we're going to talk about how to make the millionaire choice with Mr. Tony Bradshaw. So Tony spent over 16 years working in the personal finance space as VP, CIO, and COO. Over his career, he's focused on developing digital products and systems to help people with their financial education and tools to manage their money, which definitely makes him one of the perfect person to be on my Personal Finances Podcast show. So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Tony on the show.
Hey, Catherine.
Hi,
Nice.
Tony.
Thanks for having me
Hi.
on.
Yeah, good evening on your side and good morning from my side. Welcome to the show. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be in
So,
bed in 2 hours.
yeah, just the other side of the world. I understand. Well, so let's start off by having you briefly introduce yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I am Tony Bradshaw, author of the Millionaire Choice, host of the Millionaire Choice podcast. The book is authored, The Millionaire Choice, Millionaire or Not, You Can Choose, because that's what I did when I was 25 years old. I was tired of being broke and
Mhm.
spent all my paycheck, my first paycheck out of college, spent it and was $16,000 in debt on a car, a computer, and some credit card debt. And that didn't seem like a smart thing to do for me. So I decided I didn't want to do that again the next year and started learning how to manage money. And then my show is called The Millionaire Choice, Make the Choice, Create Your Plan, because that's really what's in the book. It's about making the millionaire choice like I did when I was 25, and then learning about personal finance, what you need to know, and then putting together a plan that can deliver those results. If you want to accomplish anything in life, you've got to put a goal behind it. And so my goal was to be a millionaire by age 40. And so it took me about
Mhm.
15 years to do it. I thought that
Mhm.
was pretty special until I met all these young guys and young ladies who were doing it by age 25 and 30, and homeless people that I've met. And they're like homeless at age 19 and multimillionaires at age 30. And so I don't feel as special anymore.
Well, I think it's not so much about the age or like how soon you got to achieve it, but it's about the story that you're telling. The things they're doing right now, now that you've achieved it, right?
Yeah, it's interesting what money does, because a lot of people are scared of it, scared of money. They're scared of maybe wealth will ruin them or hurt them. And some people it does adjust it. I think money. Dave Ramsey's a great financial leader and teacher,
Mhm.
and one of the things he always says is that money makes you more of what you really are. So if you've got a bad
Mhm.
person tendency, when you have more money, you're just going to be bad again. You're gonna be more bad. So if you're a good person, you got a good heart, you got your life together, then you have more money, you're gonna do more good things. And I like to believe that's what my wife and I have been able to do. We're 51 right now, so we're about 10 years past when I became a millionaire. And your life changes in the way you think about life and the way you think about money, because you're not trying to scrape nickels together to put food on the
Mhm.
table. You actually have some
Mhm.
some disposable income, and you can. It's fun to be able to have an impact in people's lives and be able to have an impact
Mhm.
and see people in need and make a difference. And that's one of the reasons I think people should aspire to build wealth, is because it does enable you to have a bigger impact.
Mhm. Wow. Well, thanks for the introduction. Well, just to get to know for our audience to get to know you a little bit better on the personal side, I'm gonna start off with just five quick questions. A bit on a personal side to get to know you a bit better. So the first question is, what motivates you in life and work?
That's a great question. For me, I've gotten to the point where I just want to make people smile and I want to make people's lives better. And, I am a faith based person. So I think for me, it's just make the world a better place, make people's lives, improve people's lives. And that's what gets me up every day, is being able to have a little bit of an impact in somebody's life to help them get to a better place.
Mhm. That's great. That's great. All right. So next question will be, what is your personal definition of financial independence?
Yeah, I love that question because it's so confusing. And I think so many people are kind of stuck in the way of doing things, just like I was. My parents worked day to day and just going through life on a gerbil wheel. And for me, at 25, it's a little different than it is today. At 25, it was I want to build wealth, become a millionaire, and then live off my investments at age 40. Now, I didn't live
Mhm.
off my investments at age 40, but I've been living off my investments for the last 6 years. So I did it a little bit later, but I was able to get there. Financial independence for me means having enough money to meet your needs and wants and leave enough left over to
Mhm.
help others. And so it's a kind of like a tight little package, because if you can just live off your own money but you don't have enough to help other people, that to me that's not really financial independence. You want a little bit more freedom in there. So when you meet somebody that needs some help, you're able to help them out.
Mhm. Yeah, I like the explanation. Yeah, I really think like sometimes it's a bit more like a mindset. It's like, um, yeah, even if you have achieved that, on statistic, like on paper, you know that you can totally, um, settle all your wants and needs. But if you're not doing the next step, you're just kind of stuck. You're not
Yeah, and
really
I
in that definition yet.
yeah, absolutely. There's a lady I came across on YouTube the other day called the Prepper Princess, and I don't agree with her message all the way, but I find her very intriguing because she's teaching people how to live on almost zero, like a very low, like minimal incomes, and still make a content living, have a content living. So for some people, that might be financial independence, right? For me, that's not financial
Mhm.
independence because of where my mind's at or my mindset is at. I do believe anyone can become a millionaire. In the United States, it's definitely a much easier when you look statistically. But I do believe there's opportunities there just based off the stories that I've heard and the people I've talked to, which I can share later. But it's
Mhm.
an interesting thing because I don't think a lot of people, like you said, mindset is where it starts. Believe that they can reach
Mhm.
financial independence. That's not something that a lot of people, when you say that word to someone, they really, most people will give you a weird look and go, "What are you talking about?" Like, I don't know what you're saying. It's almost like you're speaking a foreign language, or you pull the words out of the dictionary they've never read before, and they don't have a
Mhm.
paradigm to interpret what financial independence means.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own definition, but we just have to find what it means for ourselves, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So the next question will be, this might be interesting. Like, how do you save and invest?
Yeah, I'm gonna roll that clock back to something that's probably more
Mm.
approachable for where people are, because I think how I save and invest today is not realistic for for most people. But I'll tell you how I saved and invest when I started on my financial journey, and it was pretty simple because I didn't have a lot of knowledge. I just knew that I needed to change from where I was. And so when I was spending all my money and going into debt, I was collecting a paycheck and spending it. And then if I didn't have enough, I would go decide if I wanted to finance something like a set of $1,500 speakers for my stereo at home, or a TV or something like that. And then when I made my switch, what I did once I got financially educated on a basic level, I realized that debt really wasn't my friend, and I wanted to make sure I got out of debt. So then I changed my budget and how I spent, and I really broke my spending up into three categories at that time. I took 30%, roughly 33% of my check, and paid bills with it. My car, I lived off of that. So whatever I needed to live off of, I did that. And I took about 33% of it, or a third of it, and invested it. And I took the other third and paid off debt. So I was trying to get out of debt as fast as possible. And I went from $16,000 in debt within about 18 months. I was able to have about $18,000 in investments and be totally debt free within about 18 months. And so on the same income, so basically the same income that got me $16,000 in debt, just because I changed how I looked at the money and how I used it, I was able to get completely out of debt and invest up to $18,000. Which allowed me to buy my first house. But it's just a very simple model, and I think that's what most people need, is something that's kind of simple that they can go, "Oh, I can put that into play. I can make that work because it's simple for me." And then along the journey, you get more sophisticated. So like, that's a simple investment plan. It would be, I started with mutual funds and technology stocks. That's what I invested in. Nowadays it looks a lot different than that. Like, it's real estate, it's cryptocurrency, it's
Mm.
stocks, it's a lot of different things that I'm looking into today versus when I first started. And at some point you transition. Some people do, and that's what I've done.
Mhm. Yeah, all this sounds like simple, but but it's really about when you start doing it and keep to that month to month, right? That's what I always been telling my clients. It's not about how much you make; it's about how do you manage your cash flow, right? Which is what you mentioned earlier in those three, like 33% for expenses, 33% for financial commitments, and 33% to investments, right? Savings and investments. All right. Yeah, this like, I think most people would have come across this somewhere. Someone shared about this on their articles or even in their book and stuff. But it's about, knowing this is one thing, but do people actually practice it and, make sure this is done month by month?
Yeah, the consistency over time is
Right.
key because you don't
Yeah.
build wealth. For me, it took 15 years. For other people, it takes 7. They're more aggressive, or maybe they did something a little bit different. But the key is to get started, right? It may take some people 30 or 40 years, but as long as you're consistent over time,
Hmm.
anything's really possible.
Hmm. Yeah, but it's definitely meaningful that it's coming from you, that you share your approach, how you actually got to this point, which is things that we know. I know, like, people around me, people are on their way there. We know about this, but whether you are keep doing that, having the consistency for years and years. Right? Yeah, thanks for that. So next question will be, what's your favorite quote? This will be interesting to know.
Oh, my favorite quote. Oh gosh. Man, I don't really even think about those.
Too
Oh,
many.
here's one. Here's what I'll just throw this one. It's the first one. You got to go with the first thing that comes to mind. If you ask me tomorrow, I may give you a different quote, but this is what comes to mind
Mhm,
because I
mhm,
teach on it. Uh, the quote everybody uses,
mhm,
right, that gives them an excuse, like, I don't want to be wealthy. The love of money is the root of all evil, right? Or money, they say, what people say is money is the root of all evil, but the quote is, for the love of money is the root of all evil. And so when
mhm,
people say money is the root of all evil, I think they're mentally using that as an excuse on why they're not building wealth, or they're not getting into a better place financially. And they almost become, I don't want to say, like, it's kind of like a mental protection thing. But the quote, it gets misquoted all the time. Money is the root of all evil. The true quote is, for the love of money is the root of all evil. And so just think about that, you guys that are listening to the show, watching, when you want to be a little bit more motivated. Money's not evil. It's not going to destroy you. You just got to figure out how to handle it.
hmm. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, that is which definitely something that we will talk about later in the show, right? Which I would definitely want to know more about the mindset, about why so many think that money is the root of all evil, right? So the last quick five question will be a random question. Like, it's just a thing that I have, that I generate, like, multiple, like, out of 20,000, like, a combination. So I'm just gonna read out the question. Maybe I'll just show it to you. Just give you a minute. All right. So let me
If
read out the question to you. So this is totally random. It's just supposed to be fun. So if you weren't doing what you're doing now, you would most likely be a turtle walker or Steve Irwin.
a, what the heck is a
I mean,
turtle
of
walker?
course, when
I
it's
would definitely be a Steve
the crocodile
Irwin.
hunter.
Yeah, I would definitely be a Steve Irwin crocodile hunter because, one,
Hmm.
can I add something to this?
Mhm.
So I'm going to add a little bit because I've already channeled my inner Steve
Definitely.
Irwin. I've already channeled my inner Steve Irwin, and my wife has a video, and that was when we had a house and we had some baby possums get into our basement, and I had to go get these possums out of the basement. And so I had my wife come down and videotape me while I did my best Steve Irwin accent, and I rigged up a tether on a broom and tethered the possums' tails, and then stuck them in this little trash can that I had duct taped the lid to the trash can and stuck them in there, and then took them down to the park. So I've already channeled Steve Irwin, so I'm definitely a Steve Irwin.
That's interesting. No, to know. Like, I think it will be an interesting video to to watch even. So that's, yeah, that's good to know. But I mean, to explain a bit about the turtle walker, of course, I have no clue what it means. But from the look of it, it's probably trying to say that maybe it's your hobby to for you to keep a pet turtle, and yeah, you walk the turtle, but that's not even realistically possible.
Well,
But well,
we've got a lot.
interesting to
We've got
know
a
that yeah, you already have your version of Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter. All right. So thanks for sharing, your happily answering all the quick five questions. That now that we know you a little bit more on the personal side, can maybe, let's start off by really talking about how to make the millionaire choice. So first off, like, how do we know if a person has a millionaire mindset or not? Or, in essence, what exactly is a millionaire mindset?
Well, let me just help you. Like most people don't have a millionaire mindset. I didn't have one, and most of the people I meet don't have one. I think it's an awakening. So, like, I worked for a guy named Dave Ramsey here in town who helps people with, getting out of debt and, starting to build investments. And in my experience, most people, in America especially, but also I think the greater world, is we get caught in this trap of the way the system works, right? And the system is set up to work a certain way. Even manufacturing jobs or jobs in general, we're trained into a system, and that system is basically says you get up, you go to school, you get trained a certain way. This is the cookie cutter approach to your education. Um, and then now that you're educated, now you go into the workforce and you go work for some people. And depending on that, you might, slip through some cracks and become uber successful and do some things. That is a model. That is the model most of us are born into. It's the model I was born into. My mom never made more than $35,000 a year. My dad right now in America is making a little bit more than that. And never made 100 grand. And so I come from a family, US dollars, that could never imagine like wealth. Like that was just a weird thing for us to even think about. And so I didn't grow up with a wealth mindset. I grew up with a job mindset, a job mindset. There's
Mhm,
nothing wrong with jobs. You can build wealth with a job, but you can
mhm,
also build wealth in other ways. So neither one of those are necessarily bad or evil. You don't have to switch from having a job to doing something else. But in the job mindset, you're trained by people, teachers, who are not
mhm,
wealth minded. They don't have a millionaire mindset. They don't have a wealth mindset. And then you go to work for people, managers, who don't have a wealth
mhm,
mindset. They're not millionaire mindset. So you're surrounded with all of these people that are great people. They're good people, but they're not moving forward into a wealth or an abundance mindset. I call it abundance mindset. It's an abundant life, right? It's a different life. It's a life that's kind of more free, like you said, financial independence earlier. So how do you know if you have one? I can pretty much guarantee if you're not already building wealth, you don't have it yet. So you got to shift. And the good news is that we can all shift, because if Jerry Feta, who was on my show a few weeks ago, can be homeless at age 8 in a family with a homeless family for 4 months, and then homeless again at 19 when he's married, and develop a wealth mindset. He was homeless when he started to begin to develop his millionaire mindset or his financial mindset. It took him a few years to get fully developed, but he started to break free from the old programming or the old system. And then, 10 years later, he was 30 years old, multimillionaire. So, but to go from homeless to multimillionaire in a span of 10 years, and no, he wasn't selling drugs, and no, he wasn't doing any kind of other shady things. He, just got busy, learned how to manage money, financial advisor for a little while, and then real estate investor. He moved from being a financial advisor into a real estate investor. But he had what I would call a financial awakening. And so financial awakenings happen in a couple of ways for people that are severely debt laden. So for me, I had a financial awakening because I'd said, I don't want to be broke. That sucks. I want to do something different. What can I do differently? And after I learned about money and how to invest, then I said, you know what? Let me throw this into a spreadsheet. Let me plan this out. Let me throw these compound interest numbers in, and let me look at these different investments. And oh, if I play with this number this way, I can go from being broke to debt free within 18 months. I can go from being having no money in my bank account, $500, to having $1 million in my bank account. Not actually my bank account, but my investments. And that can happen in a relatively short period of time. So for me, it was an abundance mindset shift. So I went straight from 16 grand in debt into believing I could be a millionaire. Some people can make that jump. Others need like a stepping stone, and they go from being heavily in debt to just going, this sucks. I'm having fights with my wife all the time. We can't pay our bills. Our power got cut off. Our electricity got cut off. That's the house I grew up in. Our power got cut off a lot, and our water got cut off frequently. We didn't, we had lots of financial issues growing up. Bounce checks, like lots of bounce checks. To go from that to just going, hey, I have money at the end of the month. My bills are all paid. I'm not financially strapped. I'm getting out of debt. That's more of a debt-free mindset. It's not quite yet an abundance mindset or a millionaire mindset. And so those are like two different buckets. I have this thing I teach called the 4 money buckets. The first bucket is broke. So you're either living in the broke bucket, or you're living in the just getting by bucket, or you're living in the future millionaire bucket or the millionaire bucket. So you fall into one of those 4 categories. And guess what? Here's the beautiful thing. You get to choose which bucket you want to be in. So you might be in the broke bucket today, just like I was at 25. And I jumped over the just getting by bucket and jumped right into the future millionaire bucket. And it happened pretty quickly for me because I went from one to the other. I turned quickly. Some people don't turn as quickly, but you can turn. And that's what the millionaire mindset's all about. And I call it like I said, financial awakening. There's that point in time that happens for different people. I've got a great friend, Cordell Frazier. He wasn't heavily in debt. He had some savings, but all he was doing was sticking it in a savings account. And at age 38, he discovered what investing was all about. And he's like, oh, I can invest at 38. It took him, he went from 70,000, he had $70,000 in a savings account, and went from 70 grand in a savings account to a millionaire in 9 years. Took him 9 years. And then now I think he's bumping on the door of breaking through the $2 million mark. So that happened pretty quick for him. But he had that awakening, but he did it later in life. He did it, at 38, whereas I did it at 25. And, and I'm just saying that because I want to inspire people that, it's something that can happen, but you need to work on it over time. And the examples are there. There's millions of them out there to draw from, with all kinds of crazy stories.
Yeah. Well, so in that essence, like, why is it so important to have a mindset? I'm sure you have lots of examples, lots of stories to share about these people who have made it and, basically got the financial awakening.
Yeah. So why it's so important is because that's where it really starts. It starts in your heart. Like when you want to change your money and your situation. It starts in your mind and your heart, like what you believe. The human mind and who we are created to be is like the most amazing thing in the world. Like when you really study it and go, wow, you've read books like probably The Law of Attraction. Maybe there's a book out there called The Law of Attraction or The Power of Positive Thinking. I was talking to my son about that today. And I said the power of positive thinking. He says, is that trademarked? Is there something out there like that? Actually, there is. There's a book called The Power of Positive Thinking. I probably need to buy a copy tonight on Amazon and give it to him in his reading list, make him read it. But those are things that I would say they're almost like spiritual laws, right? So we have things like the law of thermodynamics, the law of gravity, all these things that govern our physical world. I believe there's spiritual laws as well, and people write about them all the time. Like I just said, the law of attraction, the power of positive thinking. And so what you set your mind to and focus on is what you can actually create. So it has to be in your mind before you can create it. And so a lot of goal teachers will teach you this. They'll say, hey, you're not going anywhere. If you don't have any goals, they'll say, what are your goals? You're like, I don't know. I don't set goals. I don't know what goals are. That's what most people are going to say because they're on that system where they just wake up, go to work, look at their social media, come home, do some stuff at home, eat some dinner, maybe play some video games or whatever they're doing, and then go to bed, get up next day, and do the same thing over again. Um,
Mhm.
so you what you can actually imagine in your brain, if you can focus on it long enough for a long enough period, you can actually from quite often create that. And so it has to be something that you have some reasonable capacity to do. Like, uh, I'm not gonna do Michelangelo Sistine Chapel. Like, I've done some painting. I'm not gonna go out there and crack that out. Say, I really would like to paint the roof of some major cathedral. That's probably not going to happen. That's not where my giftings are at. But
Mhm.
everybody financially has an opportunity in the financial space. That's a repeatable system. That's what I love about the money and finances, because you can't tell yourself you can't do it, because millions and millions and millions and millions of people have already done it. There's like over 12 million millionaire households in America. So
Mhm.
40% of the world's millionaires live in the United States. It's way out of proportion compared to the population that we have in the United States. I think 330 million people. Uh, the African American community has a much higher density and concentration of millionaires here. In other countries, it is harder. If you get into like maybe I've not been to India, but I know the statistics as far as like the bill, 1.4 billion people that are over there. They have more of a caste system. It's a little bit different than what's going on here in the States. There's more entrepreneurial opportunities here in the States. You go down to South America, maybe you don't have the same opportunities because of the development of the culture as far as the government and things like that. So there's maybe not as much as opportunity. So you have to acknowledge those. But
Mhm.
but it starts in your mind, right? So those situations do help there, and it's what you think. So what is it? The Bible says, "Whatsoever," or maybe it's not the Bible. Whatsoever you think of, that therefore you'll create. So you're going to. It's the power of your brain to create, and money is one of those, right? Opportunity, abundance is where it starts. Now,
Mhm.
also your heart, right? So when your heart and your mind becomes in unity, some really crazy things can happen as well. So there's a wonderful book called The Blessed Life by Robert Morris. And Robert went on this journey with God that basically he was getting all these things. Like, people started giving him stuff and he was told to give it away. So he would, like, maybe somebody give him some money. He'd say, "Oh, I need to give it to this guy." And he'd start giving this stuff away. And then it just kept getting more and more ridiculous, to the point, people were giving him cars and he'd give away a car, and then he'd get another car and he'd give away another car, and he'd get another car and he'd give away. And then finally, I forget what it was that he got that he actually gave away. But then he's like, "Oh, this is it. Like, you can't outdo this. Like, this is the biggest thing." And the next thing you know, he's getting a phone call and somebody's giving him a plane. Like, is giving him a plane, and it's all this throughput. So that's this thing. I go back to spiritual laws. What's the spiritual law around that? It's better to give than receive, right? Or what goes around comes around. Like, those kinds of spiritual laws exist, and I think they help us materialize kind of like this abundance mindset. And I know that sounds a little bit far out there, a little new agey, but I do believe those kinds of things do exist. And some people poo poo on the power of positive thinking or the law of attraction. They say that's not a spiritual or biblical kind of thing, but there's lots of examples of people that have lived that kind of
Yeah.
life, and it does make a difference.
Yeah, I think the example that you just told, I mean, the story that you just told about this giving, I think it answers like, yeah, talking about financial mindset. I, I think I do come across some people. I'm pretty sure you have come across people like that as well. That they just don't have um the goal. They don't have the desire to be a millionaire. They just think, I'm all good now. I think that's another kind of teaching they brought up in the background, that they were told to be contented with the what they have. And so it's a huge gap for them to get to what we are talking about now. But then I guess, like, the story that you were telling would be, really telling them it's not about you know having the millionaire mindset. It's not just about having all this for yourself. It's about, once you've achieved, like, have you started, like, giving, or have you started contributing, making other people's life better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And for us on the journey, for me, I grew up I grew up in a Christian community, so it was very much about, having a good relationship, and not really, we didn't really talk about money. My parents were broke. So money wasn't a big topic in any of the communities I was in, or the environments I was in. But um, so when I was building wealth, I didn't really have a focus on giving or supporting or helping people, but it was just a natural byproduct. So, we had, not to brag or anything, but I just want to set examples for people. But, we had a family that was homeless that were friends of ours, and we stepped in and helped them out quite a bit. At another point, spiritually, I was at a church service, and one of the guys that came up to speak was from Argentina. And as I'm sitting there listening to him speak, I don't know this guy. I don't even know who he is. I've never heard him speak before. I'm sitting there listening to him, and I'm terrible with names. So he was introduced, and I forgot his name. I didn't even remember his name. And he's sitting there speaking, and I'm kind of like half tuned in, half tuned out. And then all of a sudden, I hear this voice, and it's like, "Hey, give him $10,000." And I'm like, "What?" And then I texted my wife, and that's my first thing I do is I text my wife and say, "Hey, I think I'm supposed to give this guy some money." And she goes, "How much?" I told her, and she's like, "Okay." And so I went up to him and talked to him. I said, "Hey," after the service, I'm like, "Hey, um, I'm supposed to give you this money. Like, I feel like I'm supposed to get some money." And he basically broke down and started crying because he was facing a lot of hardship and troubles down in Argentina. And he had prayed before he came up to see us. And he's like, "I was praying for a sign that I was supposed to continue doing what I'm doing and stay the course and stay on track." And so this was like a moment or something. And there's been other instances like that. The checks, as I began to make more money and build more wealth, the checks got bigger. And that was really just kind of shaping me as a person too, because you have to be available, right? Like the Robert Morris's principle.
Tony, can you hear me? Welcome back, Tony.
All right, I
What
have to
happened there?
confess, as I was coming back online, I had
Hmm.
to debate on whether or not I was going to tell you what happened. Do you want to know what happened?
Of course.
I forgot to plug the computer in, the
Oh,
laptop. Power's Oh my gosh, I wouldn't have that problem. I just read about a guy. I'm going to mention his name. I can look his name up if you want me to. But I don't know if you've ever researched Nikolai Tesla. But there's rumor out there that Tesla actually came up with a technology that was a like a free energy technology, and that
Mhm.
Thomas Edison basically uh, corporate espionaged him and took over basically all of his intellectual property and stuff. So anyway, there's a guy now that came out of Africa. I think he's moved to the States, but he has now come up with free energy technology, and he's having trouble getting funded. And if you
Mhm.
like the conspiracy route a little bit, he's had 3
Mhm.
assassination attempts on his life, and one was
Wow.
last year. So
Hmm.
that's a little bit out there. But if your listeners want to learn about free energy and invest in his
Uh-huh.
technology, it's pretty cool. It's called
Mhm.
Safe. Let me see. I think it was Safe. I could look it up if you let me look it up real quick. It's actually pretty fascinating stuff. I was looking at some of it tonight. I've actually reached out. Safegroup.com, and
Safe group.
yeah, SAITH. But yeah, I reached out to them tonight. I just found out about him before I got on the show and reached out to him. So I'm going to try to talk to this inventor. Uh, I
Mhm.
love technology anyway. So, but back to what we were talking about. You learn to give, like the pickup, the interruption and the pickup. You learn to give, and I think you on the journey to build wealth. The way I look at money today at 50 is very different than
Mhm.
how I looked at it at 25 and how I looked at it at 40. So from 25 to
Mhm.
40, I was really more focused on learning how to manage money, doing a better job managing my money, in learning to invest.
Mhm.
So I would call myself a kind of like a beginning investor. I was learning. And that's a key thing. Like once you get the mindset right, you can start going on that journey to build your financial future. And it doesn't happen overnight. It happens over time. Just like you said earlier, you got to invest over time. You also have to learn over time. So you here in the
Mhm.
States, we go to 12 years of school. And then if you go to college, you get 4 more years or 5 or 6
Mhm.
or more, depending on what you do.
Mhm.
But in that whole 12 years, like how much do we really study money, which is the thing that is going to be with us for our entire lives? And the answer is zero or very little. And for most
Mhm.
people, so we end up working 100. Get this number. I ran the math on this the other day. For most
Mhm.
people in their lifetime, they're going to work between 100 and 150,000 hours. Think about that. That's between 40 and 60 hours of work a week from like age
Mhm.
15 to age 65. That's a
Mhm.
lot. Like that's a lot of time. And I think if people would look at that and go, you know what, I'm going to work 100 to 150,000 hours in my entire life. What am I going to have at
Mhm.
65 or 70? Is the retirement age
Mhm.
in Malaysia? What's the retirement age in Malaysia?
60.
Oh yeah. Well, is it stayed 60 and or has it been moving up some?
It has been staying at 60, but honestly, we've been talking about, yeah, for some people, we can actually choose to retire at 55. It's,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's
You know
it's
what? You
about
know what it
60.
is. You know what it is here in the States now.
Is it not
69.
60? Ah,
69.
wow. Hmm.
Yeah, it's 69 now. So as you get younger, and it's because they're running out of money. And so even the government takes all the money, but they don't manage it very well. So they haven't even learned it. So they just, what do? They have to increase the amount of money or push
Mhm.
back the retirement age. So what happens, I had my mom passed away at 67. My mother-in-law passed away at 70. My boss on my first job out of college passed away at 65. So none of those 3 people got to enjoy retirement really. They didn't get there. They didn't. So when you look at the 100 to 150,000 hours of work, you really need to be asking yourself, like, what's it going to look like when I'm at 65? Am I going to be able to travel the world? Am I ever going to be able to,
Mhm.
live life abundantly, or am I going to have to, you know, worry if I'm going to be able to pay my bills and get food? And I think
Mhm.
sadly, that's where most American or a lot of Americans are. I won't say most, but a lot of Americans are. Retirement, student loan debts here are a really big deal and getting worse by the minute. But giving, back to what I was saying earlier, giving it looks different to me now. So, like for me now, mindset wise, I have shifted from just going, hey, I need to manage my money well and build wealth, to now I look at it as I have a responsibility to build as much wealth as possible. That's new for me. I've
Mhm.
only developed that kind of thinking in the last probably 2 years. So probably around 49 is when I started. And the reason I say
Mhm.
that is because of a couple reasons. One is there's never a shortage of people that need help. There's like
Mm.
100, I don't know, is it 147 million orphans or 150 million orphans across the planet? They need help. There's people going hungry all over the place. They need help. Um, and so I'm a big believer that if the good people don't have the money, then the bad people do. And so
Mm.
I would love to see a world where there are more good people that have money than there are bad people that have money. And when I talk about bad people with money, I'm talking about people that are very, very powerful that have a bad agenda for people. And you see it all the time. Like if once you wake up to it, you're like, oh, why is there a hunger issue? Why isn't there a hunger issue? Why don't we just fix world hunger? Guess what? There is so much freaking money all over this planet. That should not be a problem. There should not be little kids going hungry. There shouldn't be single moms, widows. It shouldn't happen. Like, it should not be happening. I don't have enough money to fix that problem, but there's enough money on the planet to fix it. But the people that got the money, they don't want to fix that problem. Human trafficking. My wife has a book coming out on human trafficking. We've been learning about human trafficking for the last 5 years. It's a big deal. Did you know that I think it's something like, I'm going to misquote these numbers a little bit. I can get the real numbers and pull them up if we need to, but because I just prepped her stats page in her book. But it's like 20 or 30 million people are in human trafficking slavery across the planet. Like between 4 and 5 million people are sex trafficked. Sex trafficked. Women, and the average age of a teenage girl that gets into human trafficking, sex trafficking, is age 14. It's crazy. Like, it's like, and maybe this isn't for your podcast, but I apologize later to you after the show. But these are things people need to know. Like, I didn't know this stuff. And I'm like, when there's a young lady or a woman that's in human sex trafficking, and I just read a story about one in Mexico. She was being forced to have sex 30 times a day, 7 days a week. She was having sex 10,000 times a year. And over the 4 years she was in human trafficking, until there was arrests made and she was fortunate to get swept up into a series of arrests. 40,000 times she had sex in 4 years with people she didn't even know. 40,000 times. That's going on all over the place. Why aren't we as a civilization talking about that in the news? The average age of somebody who gets sold into sex trafficking, from the time they get sold in to the time they die, is 7 years. Their lifespan is 7 years. So if you're 14, you go in, you're going to live to your 21 on average. These are crazy things. That's what money can help fix if it's in the right hands. That's why I'm so passionate about it, because I think if we can get a lot of people thinking that way, we can do a lot of crazy, incredible things. And so that's why I wake up every day and go, who am I teaching today? What am I going to talk to somebody about? How am I going to empower somebody to, make an impact on the world? So you got me fired up now, Catherine. Congratulations.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's a good thing to see and good things to know, and a good thing for our audience as well. But I really think that's a very very meaningful thing to talk about. All these are the things that are happening in the world right now, but we're not opening our eyes to it. It's just we don't even think about it. Well, but that gets to the point of uh, talking about financial mindset. I think the one that is affecting everyone the most is really about what kind of family they were brought up from. So which get me thinking, like, how do you think a family background affects our financial mindset?
Oh, it's heavily affected, because you're going to repeat like the cycle. So, the environment has an effect, obviously, like the community you grow up in, because you're around the people. There's a saying out there that says you're an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if the 5 people you spend the most time with are all broke, guess what? You're broke. If you start hanging out with wealthy people, guess what? You're going to be wealthy. So you need to find people that are in a different socioeconomic place to help you move out of that. Sadly, as I was on my millionaire journey, my parents didn't go with me. My parents didn't build wealth. I spent 15 years becoming a millionaire. They could have also done that with me, They could have done that. Now, it may have taken them a little bit longer because my income was much, much higher than theirs, but they could have come along on that journey. My sister, she did not come along on that journey. So, and, she had some financial training education, but she didn't make the changes that I did. It's sadly, that's just the way it is, but we are a product of our parents, right? I'm a big believer in DNA. DNA is like the most incredible thing ever, right? So, and I think the reason I think that is because I'm a technology guy. So when I think about how computers work and how, electronics work and microelectronics and computer chips and how fascinating, and we look at those and go, wow, that's so complex. Like that technology is so complex. Your DNA is infinitely more complex than any machine on the planet, anything that exists. I mean, even from a small little strand, you can replicate like every cell in your body. Like it has all the information to make everything in your body. So I'm a big believer, and we know this because, you got your X chromosome, your Y chromosome, your parents come together, they give birth to you. You're a product of what they are. So all of their bad habits, guess what? They're passing those on to you. Everything they've done right and everything they've done wrong, you're inheriting a piece of that. And guess what? If they've got bad financial habits or a different mindset, you're going to inherit that too. It doesn't mean you can't break free from it, because you can. I'm a product of that, and I meet people all the time that do. But you have to make a conscious effort. There has to be some kind of like catalyst that kind of shifts you into a different zone. And one of the ways you can help shift that, even with your DNA or inheriting from your parents, is get around good people. Like even if you don't have good people in your neighborhood, I grew up in a neighborhood where all the families were broken families, divorced parents. Some of my friends had dads that were growing drugs in the closet. Others were drug dealers, lived across the street. Those were not the people that I needed to be around. And although I had friends in that neighborhood, I didn't, I had other friends as well. My parents took time and sacrificed a lot to put me through a private school. It was a very low cost, a private school, but it allowed me to get around some different people that actually, some of them had business. Some of their parents had businesses. Now, I would say I was probably, if not the poorest one in my grade, I think I was the only one in my class who would routinely show up at the beginning of the year and my name was not on the roll list. I had to go to the front office, and the principal would have to call my parents, and I'm like, it was just it was a disaster. So at points, my parents were behind in school payments. I think at one point they were behind like 2 years between my like fourth and fifth grade year. And the principal, for whatever reason, decided to keep letting me come to school there, and he put them on a little payment plan, and it worked out. And the school worked with us, but your parents, you're definitely a product of your parents. It doesn't mean you can't go. So let me tell you the story of this guy named Sal Lato. I'll tell you two stories. Can I tell you two stories, Catherine?
Yeah, sure. Not just me, to
So
my audiences as well.
yeah, so the first one is a guy named Sal Lato. He's a guy here that lives in town. I met him a few years ago. He grew up in, I think it was L.A. I don't know if it's Compton, but somewhere around there. And um, he was the only white guy in a Hispanic and black neighborhood. Okay. And there was gang activity. And Sal even told me, I'm like, how did you survive? And he said they had pity on me. Like the community they were sad for me. They had pity on me. And so people didn't mess with him. The second thing he said, when I asked him, like, how did you break free from that? How did you get out of that kind of socio-economic sphere? And he says, you know what? He says, one day I was out in the street and I looked over on the sidewalk and there was a man laying on his belly, crawling down the sidewalk on his arms and his belly. And there was a guy standing over him with a gun shooting him in the back. And he said, I knew at that point I had to get out of there. I had to get out. And at that point is when he shifted. That's what shifted him from being where he was to wanting to be somewhere else. And he went on to become a multimillionaire at age 30. And 10 years before I did. And he's very, very successful. But he went from that neighborhood to this, crazy other lifestyle, which is just nuts. Another one, a guy named Willie Mandrell, he was a guest on my show. He's a really cool story. He's a real estate investor here in town, or not in town, but in the States. And his mom was a black lady from the South with a sixth grade education. So she only went to sixth grade. That's as far as she went. Didn't go past sixth grade. For I don't know how your school system's up there, but here we have 12 grades before that's your primary school, middle school and secondary school, or high school, and then you go on to secondary school. Yeah, sixth grade education. Moved to Boston, moved up north, got into real estate. So with the sixth grade education, she became a millionaire. And she grew up like back in I think she was born like 1930s or 40s. Okay. And because he's 30 something years old now. And so if you could just extrapolate 20 years for his dad and then 20 years for his grandma, roughly. Now, his dad, though, did not become a millionaire. His dad got into drugs, started doing drugs. And so he did not inherit that wealthy mindset from his mother. He took a different role. So then grandson, Willie, comes along and says, I don't want to live like my dad. I want to live like grandma. And so he had seen that. So he stepped into real estate and started building a real estate portfolio and became a millionaire that way. So, yeah, in your original question was how much do parents influence that? A lot, a whole lot. Your community influences, your environment influences, but you can break free. It's possible to break free. And just want to encourage everybody, you can do it. You can do it.
Yeah, I think, I love the two stories. I mean, the first one is really just about how this guy suddenly, like, really just got the wake up call from the terrible image that he saw that he would never be able to remove, from his memory in his entire life. And that was just a strong enough wake up call. I think for most people, for some people, they have not gotten that wake up call yet. They just, live their life like, like you say, like just day in, day out, working this 50 hours a week and day by day, and then having to work till, yeah, post retirement age. I mean, which in Malaysia that will be post like 60 years old. Yeah. And then the second example, I think I love that story is really because it's telling us that it doesn't mean that if our parents are not having the mindset, they're not the only person that, of course, that's in our DNA, but not to forget that our DNA goes like way generation before as well. We can have a parents that we can really learn from, which I think, yeah, that's very encouraging, right? It doesn't mean that you have to. I mean, I think this is a really, really important point because I really do see some people, everything they're doing right now is because of their parents. They're telling me things, for example, yeah, I'm like this because my parents were like that. So, but this is to shout out to these people that you do not have to just look at your parents. You can look elsewhere, look around, like who's around you, or just change the environment, and then be clear with what we want to achieve, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And I loved how you said that. Like you can look to other examples too. If you don't have a good example with your parents, look for a different example. There's plenty of great examples out there. It's what you put in this mind is what's going to come out. So if you want to, project abundance, you want to project prosperity, you want to project that in your life, you need to take it in. So you need to take that in from
Mhm.
somebody else, whether it's Tony Robbins or Tony Bradshaw. You need to take it in from somebody so that it can kind of filter through you. And then over time, you get enough of it in up here and dwell on it. You're going to start putting it out, and it's going to kind of flow. It's going to flow through. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think when I look at society today, look at what people are putting in their heads. And I'm guilty of this too. I listened to some really bad music when I was, 13, 14 years old. Uh, you know, I won't mention any names, but it was not good music. And I went through that phase, and now I'm into other things, put in things that are refreshing, and the biggest thing is like you need to be hanging out with people that are going where you want to go. You need to be listening to things that are going where you want to go. So like if you want to build wealth, listen to people who've built wealth, who are trying to teach you about wealth. If you want to get healthy, listen to people who are like helping you get healthy. Like put that in. Don't just sit around and go, "Oh, I'm overweight. My heart rate's up," or you gotta put that in your mind so that you dwell on it, and then that can help guide you and reprogram you. The way you think, the way you focus, the things you focus on. Like you said earlier, goals. If you don't have goals, you're not going anywhere. So set some goals and
Hmm.
then put some action behind those goals
Yeah.
to take some action to get on the right track.
Yeah. That's, which comes to the main, main key things about the essence of your book that you wrote, The Millionaire Mindset. So, what are the top three keys? I know that you have a list of 10 at least of, like, the key things of making the millionaire choice, but what will be the top three?
Well, they're all good, so there's not really a top three. There might be three that we
I
can
know, I
talk
know.
about, but
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
for
you
the
can't.
listeners, the audience, we have to, read the book
Yeah.
and check it out, and to find out the 10. But just as a teaser and or for the introduction or sneak peek, maybe what are the
Yeah.
top three?
Well, I'll describe the first two. The first two don't have anything to do with money. They have to do with what I call a foundation. So you have to get your foundation right before you start trying to build wealth. We talked about that a little bit earlier. The first key is you can't. It's called develop strong character. You can't build or keep wealth if you don't have strong character. If you have a lot of money, you can lose it really fast if you don't have the right character. It can slip away from you. So that all the work, it doesn't matter how much work you've done. If you don't have good character, you can lose it all. The next one would be like maximize your time. We all have the same amount of time. I'm 51 years old, and everybody else that's 51 had the same amount of time I've had. Some people are farther along in success road than I am. Some people are, not even on a road to success. They're kind of just living their lives, and that's okay if that's what they want to do. I'm a big believer that if you're going to live a life, live it to its fullest, and try to do the most with it that you can. But it's called maximize your time. So we all have the same amount of time. It's what we do with it that kind of determines where we're going to go. And that's a big one. I think that's a really, really important one, because I think a lot of people, when I meet people and they ask me what I do, I'm like, oh, I got a podcast and a book, and I'm teaching people about personal finance, how to become millionaires. They just look at me with really weird faces. They can't get it. They can't process, like, oh, you're a millionaire. You're like one of those guys chasing money. I'm like, dude, I've never chased a dollar in my life. Never asked for a raise. Never gone out trying to like hustle for a dollar. Money just kind of flows to me through jobs and raises and things like that. I've even gotten raises when I didn't ask for them. Somebody ask on my behalf or something. Um, so I'm not chasing money. And so I think maximizing your time is so important. It's what you do. You've got to set yourself up for success. And you do that with your time. So when I was 25, I was learning about money, taught myself about money. Instead of watching NFL football or golf or whatever else you could waste your time on, I was reading about money and trying to learn how to better manage my money. That was maximizing my time. Now, saying that, I've also wasted a lot of time. You know, I admit it, I'm a video game addict. I started when I was about 24. I've probably spent at least 10,000, maybe as much as 20,000 hours playing video games in my 20s and 30s and 40s. Right now I'm reformed. I'm about 18 months clean. So I haven't played anything in like 18 months. But I've been through phases. But even in the midst of wasting all that time, I was still able to redeem enough of my time to build a level of success. But the one thing I'm sad about is I'm like, man, if I got this successful with the time I did use wisely, what would my life have looked like if I had fully utilized my time and not wasted so much of it? So, and I'm a big believer in that. So those are kind of like what I call foundational keys. After that, you got to get what I call money smart. So I have two keys in there. Key 3 and 4, which is find a money mentor. So find somebody you can learn from. You can figure out money on your own, but you're going to go a lot farther, a lot faster if you just attach yourself to some really smart people. So look for good mentors, and don't be afraid to trade up on your mentors. So the mentor you start with today maybe you may trade that mentor out for a better mentor later if you come across someone. You don't have to keep the same mentor for 10 years. You could start with one, and then maybe a year later switch to another one, and then find a couple more after that. Just keep looking around. And then the key number 4 is get money smart. Just like we talked about earlier, we spend so much time in school. Getting money smart is not just reading one book. It's not reading The Millionaire Choice. It's not reading Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. It's like you need to reprogram your mind to go, hey, this is a lifelong journey. If you're 25, plan on reading and learning about money for 40 years. Just keep learning a little bit every year over 40. If you're 40 or 50, don't don't be sad that you didn't learn it before. Just start right now, because guess what? You can catch up. Everybody starts at the same place. Warren Buffett, what's the was it they call him Oracle of Omaha? Oracle of Omaha. He didn't come out of the womb knowing everything there was to know about money. When he was born, he didn't know jack about money. He had to learn it, just like we all do. We all have to learn it. And so he may have learned it a little bit sooner. You may be a little bit better at it than maybe some other people are, obviously, than me. But we all start at kind of the same place. But once we start, if you can develop a habit of going, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm going to continue learning about money my entire life. And then you can get the rest of the keys are really where I get into the money principles. But the one that I think is the most important is once you learn about the finances, like how to make, manage, and multiply your money, which is pretty, it's pretty standard stuff. You got to put a plan together. And that's where I think is big key. So you take all this stuff you learn, you go, okay, I need a plan. What's my plan look like? How am I going to spend my money? How am I going to earn my money? How am I going to, or make money? I like to say make, because earning, it means you're working for somebody else. Making money means you can sell stuff, you can buy stuff, you can work for somebody, you can do real estate. There's a lot of ways to make money. When you earn money, you're actually working for somebody else. And then, how are you going to invest, right? So a lot of people, I don't know what your teaching is, Catherine, but a lot of people in the financial advisor space over here talk about invest 15% of your earnings or what you make in retirement. And I don't like that number. I don't like 15%, because 15% is not the same for somebody making 100 grand or somebody making 50 grand. I think if you go, what does it look like to invest $10,000 a year? And if I get to 10, ask yourself, what does it look like if I can get to 20? Can I invest 20 grand a year? And then keep one upping yourself every year, because that is what a stretch goal is, because it stretches you beyond your day to day. And we as humans, a lot of times, a lot of us get in a cycle. It's like a repeating cycle. You wake up, you do the same thing every day. That's the worst thing you can get. I call it stagnant, right? So you can get income stagnant. You can get life stagnant. Like everything can get and I use stagnant because, if you're in a body of water, let's determine algae grows. If you have a body of water that doesn't move, you see this moss gets built up on top of it. It's not moving water. We need to move, like as people, we need to move things around. So, how do you spend your money? How do you make your money? And how do you multiply your money? And that's a big one, and how much money are you multiplying? So, is it possible that you could put, as a person, 50% of your income or what you make into investments? 50%. Like, is it possible to do that? Throw out the 15% and just keep stretching yourself, or if you want hard numbers, what does it look like to do 10,000? What does it look like to do 20,000? And wow. And as you mentally stretch your mind and you hit these different numbers, you start to, at some point you break through and go, anything's possible. That's where you eventually end up. But you have to start by taking these smaller steps first to reshape your brain and how you think. And then you get to other places. Is it possible? I've met people over here that are making, come from meager family means. I tell one story. I got to give you one more story. I love these people.
Right.
Beth and Russ Schomp. I love them. I love their family. I love their daughter. Russ. So they're multimillionaires, make a lot of money now. When they got married, Russ would actually, I think if I remember the story, not let them get cheese on their cheeseburgers, because cheese costs 10 cents extra for a cheeseburger, to put cheese on a cheeseburger. So he wouldn't, when they go out to eat, he wouldn't get cheese because it was 10 cents more expensive. So you go from that mindset of to making, $500,000 or $1 million a year. And that's a totally different world, but they didn't get to that level of success, overnight. They had to start taking baby steps. Probably first had to start buying cheese, for the cheeseburgers, and then, go, hey, I got some money. I can afford cheese now. What else can I go buy or invest? Right. And so, but they developed an investing wealth driven mindset. And anybody can do that. It's harder for some people than others, but yeah, that's the spending. That's what I call the millionaire plan. That is key number 10 in my book. And that's why I call the show Make the Choice, Create Your Plan, because it's not enough just to have a bunch of knowledge and do it. You got to put something behind it. And I like having a plan that sets a specific goal. I believe that becoming a millionaire is a predictable date. Just like I did. I said I think I can do this by age 40. And then I've talked to people that said, it takes 7 years. 7 years is all it should take. And I'm like, wow, that's like half of what I did it in. That's pretty aggressive. Um, but people have done it. People do it. So, and that's what the plan's all about, setting a goal, whatever it is, because a goal drives you. Even if you don't hit your goal, it's still driving you in the right direction. And I think that's not a key, Catherine. It's not a key that I have,
Mhm.
but it's an important principle. And that is the journey may not look exactly like you thought it was going to look when you started, but the important thing is to
Mhm.
get going in the right direction, and the journey will develop itself. The worst thing you can do is do nothing and be stagnant. And then if you can just get
Mhm.
moving in the right direction, you've given yourself the opportunity to do something pretty amazing in your life.
Yep, definitely. Yeah. I think it's just so important for everyone to just set the goal, and we can have like people that we look up to, people that can learn from, keep learning, keep growing. But no, at the same time, try not to compare yourself with somebody else, because everyone started from a different ground and different background. You might have your different approach, different way to get there, but it's the important thing is, don't just get stagnant and start having the algae grow on you. So, right.
we,
I
we need
think,
to call that money
yeah,
money
I think
algae or something. I don't know what it is. Dead algae. I don't know what.
I like that term already. I might start using that, telling this story to my clients. All right. In your book, you also mentioned our money is important in our lives. You discovered a few things along life's journey that are vastly more important than any amount of money will ever be. I really love that part of the book, and it will be meaningful for you to share. I mean, to hear from you about your personal experience about this.
Oh yeah. Well, thanks for giving me an opportunity to share that. Yeah, I think for me, my parents were awesome parents. They were great parents. I have no complaints about my parents. But one thing that was very interesting about my family, and I don't know that I put this in the book, but both of them came from broken homes. My mom told me stories about my grandfather, who was an alcoholic. At one point, he was strangling my grandmother with a phone cord. She had some psychologically and physically abusive brothers and sisters. Lots of alcoholism in my mom's family. On my dad's side of the family, my dad had maybe I don't know if I would say it's worse, but it was really bad. Like he didn't have a family unit. He started supporting himself at like ninth grade. He had to move, like take care of himself. Dropped out of school. Went off to Vietnam. Had his best friend blew his brains out over there because his got a letter from his either wife or girlfriend. I don't remember, but very traumatic kind of stuff, for young kids to go through. Um, and so what happens, like we talked about earlier, the DNA, what that put is that my parents together were able to build a really good relationship, but they didn't do a great job of building external relationships outside of the family. So there were superficial relationships, but not deep, meaningful relationships. And so we inherit a lot of, like I said earlier, our parents' problems and successes through our DNA. And one of those is a relationship issue. Like I would have relationships with people, but I didn't know what it really was like to connect with people, like on a deep level. I could superficially connect with people, but I really couldn't. I didn't have high levels of empathy for people, or could build really deep connections. And so, real like true caring, even to the point at one point, I remember sitting in a restaurant with my wife and telling my wife, I'm not sure if my mom died that I would cry at the funeral. And that really bothered me because I'm like, I know I love my mom, or do I really know what love is? I found myself asking myself that question, like, do I really know what love is? And my wife, just bless her heart, like putting up with me for, we've been married 23 years. And I think I think I've given her 3 or 4 good years now, but I gave her 18 years of hell. It was bad. It was really bad. And I wasn't abusive. I didn't think I was verbally abusive, but she would say otherwise. Um, I was just being me. I didn't feel like I was verbally abusive. I wasn't yelling at her or cussing at her or anything like that, but I was definitely not nice. And not building up. I was not who I needed to be. And I think I had to come to terms with that and heal from it. And, I'm a big believer that everybody needs therapy. So if you got some problems, just write the check, go get the therapy. You're gonna be a lot happier for it. I didn't start getting real therapy till I was, gosh, what was this? I've probably been in marriage therapy in 2015. Yeah. So, but I had messed up about 7 years of using either marriage counseling or some kind of, psychological therapy. And when I say, just dealing with specific issues, but I had not been good to my wife at all. And I found myself in a place where I had to make a choice. I was like, am I going to stay married, or am I going to, and it, am I going to leave and lose my marriage, move on, which I didn't want to do. Or, is this thing going to get better? Like because I didn't see myself going, I want to be married 30 more years or 40 more years. And it's going to be the same way it's been for 17 years. And it wasn't my wife's fault. It was my fault, because I got to take ownership of it. But I had to learn that, right? And along the way, I replicated. My dad was a great dad, but he did not know how to connect because he didn't have a father figure in his life. And so I had to learn how to do all that. And I don't think I've mastered it. I've just gotten better at it in the last 5 or 6 years because I had to grow up. My dad didn't have a father figure in his life. My dad did as good as he could do for me, but I still replicated a lot of his shortcomings, which was, how do you connect with kids? He's 72, still alive, but even conversations with me are very difficult. They're very superficial, even now as adults. For him and honestly for me, we still love each other. There's no question about that. But just how do you really interact as individuals? And I think that's a skill you have to develop. Unfortunately, I don't think men are very good at it naturally. I think it's something we have to work at. So I had to put a lot of effort into it. And I'm still fixing things with my kids. I have 6 kids, ages 10 up to 22. The first kid always gets experimented on. So you make all your worst mistakes on your first kid. And I think I've done better with my last 3. My first 3, I probably would give myself a C, maybe at best, in how I parented. My last 3, I'm going to give myself probably a B plus, maybe. I think I'm doing a lot better with that. But I had to learn that, and that's more to life than money. Money is just a tool that lets you do things. Life is really about relationships and learning how those relationships work. And for me, my mom was a wonderful woman, but she had a lot of baggage from her childhood that she never really put to rest. She never got the help that she needed to get past it. And so when she passed away at 66, I'm sorry, she took those problems to the grave with her, and those relational problems and all that. And that's something I think I'm doing a better job of that now, but it's taken a lot of work. I looked at my wife. I remember when I asked her to go to marriage counseling, and she was like, I don't know if I want to go to marriage counseling. And I just looked at her and very softly I said, honey, do you want the next 18 years of marriage to look like the last 18 years? And she just shook her head and said, no, I don't want the next 18 years to look like the last 18 years. I said, we need to go get some help. And we went. And you know what happened? I walked in. I'm like, oh, we need to do something different. We need to change. That was my awakening. We talked about a financial awakening. This was my marital awakening. And I talked to this marriage counselor at the end of the first time. And he looks at us and he said, I still remember, he's sitting in the computer on the left. I'm standing here. My wife's standing beside me. And his name's Chuck Sugar. Wonderful guy. He looks up at me and goes, so when would you guys like to come back? And I looked at him. I'm like, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. What do you have open next month? And my wife was looking at me, and she turned and looked at him, and she says, what do you have open next week? So I went from a first session. So that began our marriage counseling that lasted every week for 6 months. So when people tell me, I've tried marriage counseling, I've heard so many people say, I've tried marriage counseling, it didn't work. I go, how many times did you go? And they go, "Oh, we went to 3 sessions and I wasn't getting anything out of it." I said, "Well, you know what? I went to 6 months every week for 6 months. I went to like 30 sessions very quickly, and it made a world of difference for me. Like, it was night and day difference. It didn't fix all my problems, but what it did is it took me off the cliff that I was about to jump off of, and it got me back off the cliff and said, "Hey, there's hope. Things can change, things can get better." And then my wife and I have just been working on that, year after year, month after month, and we, other things that I've done that, I had to fix that I screwed up. But that was the beginning of that journey to fix those relationships that I had broken so much. Money really didn't break those relationships. That was just me being a jerk at the time and not knowing how to do relationships correctly. My kids, I fixed that. And then, I think the most important, and then you got friends and family, right? So, women tend to make friends a little bit better than men do, women groups than men do. It's important for men to learn how to do that, to have a group of guys that you can go with and that can tell you, "Hey, stupid, stop doing that." That's what guys need. Guys need to, bros that can, pop them in the back of the head like you do as a teenager when you're in school and the guy that's sitting behind you hits you in the head in school, in the classroom, and starts messing with you. We need that. We need that as adults. We need it as kids, in a healthy way, though. As adults, you do it in a healthy way, just to slap some sense into us. But along that whole journey, what I've learned through my entire life and my entire journey is the most important relationship to me is the relationship with Jesus. And I can honestly tell you, like, it is crazy how real God is when you're actually reaching out to him. And it's amazing. Like, and that's the thing that I've learned, as a kid. I was I became a Christian when I was 9 years old, and went to school, learned the Bible, learned all that stuff, went all that. But and was, on the journey. That's what I understood to do. But I'm going to tell you, when I turned 30 and I heard God's voice for the first time in my head guiding me on my directions. I knew he was guiding me before because I could feel it. But when you hear like a voice that's not your voice giving you directions on something, and then all of a sudden your life totally shifts and you go from being, making 45 grand a year to making 10 times that, because you acted on that voice that you heard. And then you hear that voice again guiding you on your journey, and your marriage almost implodes, and you can, there's this spiritual presence that comes in. And and this is where I came to this conclusion. Okay. And I don't know if you read the Bible, Catherine, so thanks for letting me share all this stuff. But I go back into the Bible, and I look at a couple relationships and I draw from those. There's a lot of relationships in there and stories in the Bible, but I really started to hang on to a couple of those, and that's these. It was Elijah. Elijah, it talks about how he walked with God and then he wasn't, right? So he was walking. So I've adopted in my life, my goal in life is not money. My goal in life, I got lots of goals, but my goal has become to walk as closely with God as possible. So I look in the Bible and go, God walked with Adam in the garden. God walked with Elijah and conversed, they communicated. Or God walked with Moses and they communicated. Like, God is a God of relationship, and he's a God that wants connection. The problem is we don't understand that, and we don't understand how to create it. So we go through our lives in a mundane way, not fully understanding that there's a God in heaven that actually wants to build a one-to-one direct relationship with us that's as real as the conversation you and I are having right now. And when you get a taste of that, it's really hard to go back. You have to pursue it. And I don't have it all figured out, and I'm not good day to day. And I've messed up so many things in my life, so much. But it's a very different perspective than what you grow up with. Like, there's a God of judgment. Like, you think about, oh, if I do a sin or I do something wrong, I'm gonna get squashed like a bug. That's not who God is. God creates us, wants us to live an abundant life. Now, that may mean different things for different people, but it's been my experience, and maybe it's not everybody's experience because everybody's on a different journey. But even when I was doing my worst stuff, the worst stuff I could ever do, there was a God there trying to encourage me not to do it. There was a God of love going, hey, that's going to hurt. Don't go do that. That's going to destroy you. It's going to destroy your family. It's going to like, and I wish we had time to go into all that, but that's the God that I know, and that's pursuing me and calling me to a deeper relationship. And I'm a big believer. There's a verse in the Bible. I'm going to misquote this. It's out of it's a proverb, I believe. It says, "Draw nigh to God, and He will draw nigh unto you." And what that verse means, it used to mean different things to me, but what it means is if you take a step closer, just like a relationship, if you take a step closer to someone, they're going to take a step closer to you, and you're going to meet. Eventually, you're going to meet, but we have to be willing to make those steps and create that relationship. So, yeah, that's kind of the book. I mean, it's so important because the money is just a tool. This world we're living in is just it's a place. It's temporary. It's the relationships with people, relationships with our kids, relationships with neighbors up the street. I had a neighbor. I have to confess, my dogs got out and bit his chicken. And he's not happy about it. He wasn't happy my dogs
Oh,
bit his chicken. It didn't kill his chicken. It just bit it. And they're just puppies. They're just 9 months old. But he wasn't happy. But I have to fix that relationship. It's important. Relationships are important, even when there's tension in them, in between them. But um, yeah, I've enjoyed chatting with you tonight.
well, thank you so much for sharing all these stories with me. I wish I'm that expressive as you are. I'm really grateful for all the emotions and all the stories, your life journey that you shared with me. I think that's very meaningful. And then these are the things that I don't see in a book. I haven't finished reading your book yet because yeah, it's just an e-copy. I was just scrolling and I focus on the important parts. But yeah, I mean, I'm grateful that whatever that you shared earlier, of course, you got the good summaries of like what the book was about. But yeah, I'm just grateful that you're sharing things that were not in the book itself, which was supposed to be one of my questions actually, and you did that, without me asking.
I
Yeah,
beat you to the punch. I
grateful for
beat you to the punch, Catherine.
that. Yeah. So yeah, to kind of wrap this up. So if there is one big audacious habit or goal that you want our audience to take action, what would that be?
Wow. I think change today. Here it is. Develop a lifelong learning culture. Like learn something new all the time. Like if it's money or work or whatever, that's the key. Like that is the biggest key that's helped me find success is becoming a lifelong learner. Learn something new as often as you can, and then hopefully it's something you can actually apply that actually generates
Mm.
results. But learn all the time. Turn off Facebook, turn off social media. My TV, I turned my TV off probably 4 years ago. I don't watch TV anymore. I used to watch movies. If I wasn't playing video games, I was watching movies or anime. I love anime, by the way. Um, my kids are hooked on my kids are hooked on it now too. I probably got 200 anime DVDs upstairs, um, maybe more. But yeah, learn.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so important. Yeah. I think it's still nothing is more important than, one thing is also about finding things to learn in life. And then you might have to, at different point of life, you might be interested in different things. You might be interested in learning about finance. At one point, it can be interested about, how to be a good coach, or at one point about like can be about how to be more healthy. But the whole point is just about, if you stop learning, yeah, we're gonna have the we talk about the money algae, but you definitely don't want the body algae on us.
No, no body algae.
So
Well, the one thing you asked me, I'll put let me put a challenge out there for your listeners and people that are watching. This is a money podcast, right? Pick out 12 books. Okay. Now there's 4 of them. There's 8 of them listed on my website that I've got up on if you look for the Wealth Builders Toolbox. I just launched this section of the website a few weeks ago. There's 8 books listed there. I need to raise it up to 12. So you could read my 8 books that I've listed, maybe get 4 from Catherine, or you could take Catherine's 12 books. But read a money book. Read a money book, 1 book per month for the next 12 months. At the end of those 12 months, You will be one of the most highly financially educated people on the planet after you read those 12 books.
That
And it's just
absolutely love the
it's a simple,
advice.
yeah, it's a simple action, simple action.
Yeah, simple, but it might be big for some people, but it's just a start somewhere. At least start by right after this, right after hearing this from us, just start researching what are the books you plan to read for this year, for this 12 months, and then pick one that the easiest one, maybe the not the thickest one, but one easy one to start with. And everyone wants to start small, and if it's easier, people will keep going. But the point is just start somewhere, learn and read about, yeah, about finance or things that we are interested in. Well, I really appreciate the 1 hour and 25 minutes that I had with you, to talk about all these things. Yeah. Yeah, if there's a chance, I would love to have you again on the show again. This was a summary of like about a book. Maybe some another session we can talk about something else that would benefit our audience.
Do I get to ask you a question, Catherine? Can I ask you something?
Wow. Oh wow, sure.
All right, you got your podcast, My Personal Finances PodCat. So how many
Hmm.
cats do you have?
Just one.
Just
I mean, other
one?
than myself, yeah, just one cat. Yes.
So
Just one
let's
fat
before
ginger
we
cat.
wrap up. Yeah, before we wrap up tonight, let's trade cat stories for a minute. Can we do that?
Cat stories. Well, tell me.
So, will you tell me yours? What's your craziest cat story? What's the craziest cat story you have? Because if you're a cat lover, you've had cat. Have you had cats your whole life?
No, no, not really. I think yes, like growing up, yes, where I grew up, it was an old terrace house. We used to have a lot of stray cats like behind our backyard, and then yeah, my mom used to like control us, like say, don't touch them. They have leaves on and all these things, and yeah, but every time when my parents are not at home, we'll let them in. We put them on our on our laps, and then on the sofa, just hope and pray that they don't scratch anything or leave anything behind. But yeah, that's how we started like loving, basically animals and pets. And then here I am living with my, actually not exactly my cat, but I live with my sister, and she brought the cat in. It was just a stray that she found in the park, and yeah, I love her to every bit. But sometimes she pisses me off as well. It's just like, I mean, I'm not sure if this is a cat story that I should have in this show, but I went out for many hours yesterday, and then when I got home very late last night, I found I found her poo in my room. In my room, and I'm a
Ah!
definitely like a hygienic person, and that drove me crazy. And not just that, I think cats are, they definitely have their own thoughts, and yeah, they're very smart, and I think it's just her way of protesting about how I was away for the whole day. And then once I came back, she wanted me to see this thing, and she was sleeping on my dressing table, lay flat, and yeah, basically occupied my
Oh,
whole dressing table. And I had that poo that in right in front of my bathroom door. Just her way of protesting, and yeah, so that's my cat story.
yeah. Yeah, we have. I mean, I could share tons. We've had cats since I was little, and I love my cats, but I can't have any right now because my kids are too allergic. So I've got to wait till my kids move out of the house before I get a cat. And I'm going to get one. I'm going to get one when they're gone for sure. But I got to take care of my daughter right now. But when I got married, I had a cat. It had they were alley cats, and I had picked them up because I was living with my parents. And there were two of them that were brother. One was really big, and the other one was a little thinner. But the owners had left them and just left them in the alley when they went, and so they separated. And one went to the upper end of the alley, and one stayed low. So I actually got one of them, and like, oh, they abandoned it. I'm gonna take care of it. And so when I got married, I still had that cat. So when I slept in my bed, the cat would sleep with me, but he would always touch me. So if I moved or rolled over, he would actually move in the bed to where he would put a paw on me. So he always had a paw on me when he's sleeping. So then I got married. He'd stopped sleeping in my bed. He started sleeping on the headboard of the bed. And every morning he would jump off the headboard and land on my wife's head. He would stomp her every morning. He would stomp
Can
her.
you explain that? Do you understand
He was
why?
jealous.
Why?
He was jealous. He was jealous. It was his bed and it was mine in his bed, and now somebody else is in the bed, and he was not having it. And he unfortunately he contracted feline leukemia, and he passed
Uh,
away. I think the first year we were married, but I loved that cat. He was awesome, and but he was not having my wife being in that bed. And he'd stomp her head like every morning, and she was not. She wasn't happy about it. That's for sure.
I definitely love that cat story. Yeah, I mean cats are just like that. They have their ways to show you what they want or what's in their mind, even if they can't talk. They're just communicating with us.
Yeah. I love them. I miss them. At one point we had when I was a kid, we had a cat, got pregnant. She had like 4 kittens, and then those 4 kittens, we didn't get them spayed or neutered, and they all had 4 more, like they had 4 litters at the same time. We had 21 cats in our house at the same time. And when I was like I was probably about 13 years old, and unfortunately we had to get rid of them all except for 2. We ended up keeping 2 of them, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's I love cats are wonderful creatures, and they go well with finance, right? You got personal finance and you got cats, and you put both two awesome things together. It came up with the show.
Well, yeah, I mean to explain how we came up with this. I mean it's not exactly my idea. It was my Steven. I mean he was the one that started this Facebook page. My PF. So yeah, I mean this whole thing just started by me and him having this discussion. How talking about how can we contribute to this platform, to this Facebook page and this community. And then I was thinking, for some people they can write very well. I I enjoy writing, but I don't think I'm a very good writer. So then he said, why don't you start, you know, why don't you try something else? Maybe you can talk, or maybe you can come up with videos and stuff. And then that's how I came up with this. And this whole thing, just right after that conversation, that short conversation, he set up a team, and then he started I mean got someone to design the logo and everything, had everything planned out within a couple of days. And oh, okay. I didn't even, yeah, totally unexpected. And then that's how I started. And with the name itself, basically it's just because podcasts are basically what we call people who loves, like podcast addicts. So yeah, so I just combine that with my personal finance, like PodCat, and that somehow just gelled with I'm Catherine. And people don't really call me Catherine, like they just call me Cat. So yeah, I'm this
All
cat
right,
in the
I'm
podcast.
gonna I'm gonna give you some branding advice here. I think the next time I'm on your show, I want you to have some of the cat ears, the little mounts. You got to get some special. I've seen them. I know these gamer girls. I know these gamer girls have these cat headsets. I think you need to do a cat headset, Catherine. I think you need to go all in on this brand.
I am not sure about that. Maybe I can think about it. Maybe like if I can find some cat ears that I can accept and it's not too cute. I'm not into something that is too cute, even though like the way I designed this whole podcast, with the images that I have, it kind of on the cute side, but it's not exactly how I am. Yeah.
I get it.
Well,
I get it. But
branding
well, I
issue.
think you're doing a wonderful job, and let me commend you because I want to see the world change. Like I want to see people set free financially. I mean, over here, there's too many people carrying too much debt burden, and yeah, I don't like the current financial system. I mean, I'm benefiting from it, but I think it could be a lot better. And I think it's going to take people like you doing shows like this to help get the word out and just help people to think differently and to break free. I mean, I like to see a future. I like to, you may not have seen this, but one of my goals, I want to have a vision for the world where there's only millionaires and future millionaires. That's what everybody's either one of those two. There's no more poverty. We just get rid of that. And so I know it's a crazy dream, but I want to create that kind of a place because I think when people get older, they should be able to enjoy wealth and abundance, not you know struggling, and definitely not government assistance. I don't want anybody on government assistance. I think that needs to go away. Um, I think we can do it. I think we can figure out how to do that, and I want to believe that, and maybe when I'm laying in my casket, maybe they can put that. Maybe I'll get lucky and they can put that on my obituary or something.
Oh, that will be. Oh, really, definitely like that dream. I think that's kind of what I believe in as well. I just don't enjoy seeing people hustle for nothing in life. That is one of my that's what I put up on my advisor profile. I always say, like, it's not about. I see many people chasing money, but it's not exactly. I mean, then when I realize, when I understand from all these people, it's not exactly the money that we are chasing. It's just some value or something that we believe behind it. Like you mentioned, like money is like a tool, but it's we're not exactly chasing the dollars, not the money itself, but something that's more meaningful. So yeah, so that's whoever is on this journey, like we're glad that you're listening to us. And yeah, good to have Tony on this show. And yep, so thank you. So I guess that's a wrap here. Thank you for all your sharing.
Yeah, thanks for giving me an hour and a half. Wow, did we we must really like
I
each
think I
other,
just took your
Catherine.
dinner time.
No,
I think I
I
just
ate
took your
before.
dinner time, right? Ah, wow, early
Yeah.
dinner.
No, I'm good. I'd be
Yeah.
good. But no, apparently we like each other. But yeah, thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And I hope somebody got something useful out of our time tonight, especially if they hung in
Mhm.
there for an hour and a half, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think definitely, I mean, I believe there are a lot of listeners who definitely benefiting from what we shared today. And yeah, let's hope that we have more upcoming sessions.
Yeah, thank you. Have a wonderful day in Malaysia.
All right. Yes. All right. Thank you.